Hey, Mike, we're live. Are you ready?
I don't feel so alive, but let's go.
Oh, well, hello, everybody. We're here on Mike Hamilton's LinkedIn page and on YouTube Live. Nobody, I think, has ever watched on the YouTube Live thing. We need to figure out what to do over there.
I have. Everything has one view, and it's me.
All right. Well, as usual, if you have questions for us, put them in the chat. I don't know which side it's on for you. It's on one of those sides. Put it in the chat and we'll answer your questions. Number two is, I think this is really important, having just come through Black Friday and Cyber Monday. One of the things Mike didn't know until he met me was when you do things like this, you should have a solid colored shirt. Mike today has succeeded in this. Earlier today, I was on a Zoom call with somebody who had, one of those shirts with a lot of dots on them. Those don't go well on cameras. So you see, Mike is actually obeying me. Mike works for marketing.
No, this just happened to be a clean and ironed shirt. If the cleaned and ironed shirt had vertical stripes, I probably would have worn it.
Yeah,
and then put a jacket on over it, right?
Right, because I would have made you change.
I know you would.
And I wouldn't make you change mid-LinkedIn because nobody wants to see that. So I didn't see you last week. How was your holiday?
It was good, uneventful. Pretty much just stayed at home, went to the studio, recorded myself playing drums, which sounds like interesting, but it's not. It's pretty boring when it's just you. Stayed away from people. There's a pandemic going on, man. What did you do?
There's a pandemic? No, we were going to travel and see family, but we stayed home. And strangely had a 25-pound turkey. So if anybody needs any extra, we still have it. My kids are pretty tired of it. I did find a great turkey recipe. So if anybody wants that, send me a note. It's a turkey pot pie recipe that was really, really, really good.
I think I might want that. Can I just verbally ask for it, or do I need to put it in the chat?
No, you need to put it in the chat. If you want it, you got to put it in the chat. All right. So people are not here to hear us talk about shirts, turkey, and recipe. Well, maybe they are, but that's not what we're going to talk about. I do want to talk about the pandemic, though. So one of the things that's happened in Washington State and some other places is, iPhones and Androids now have COVID tracking abilities. And some folks have said, hey, should I turn this on? Thoughts?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I'm not going to use it, but, not for the reasons you may think. My personal policy is to avoid contact, which is what we're supposed to be doing right now, which makes the use of the app moot. I'm never close enough to anybody for my phone to be in communication with them.
I think you just like to say the word moot. But, for other folks, not everybody is doing what you're doing. What's your advice to them?
Well, so the app works on near field communications, right? Bluetooth. And it will notify you if your phone has been near another phone that's owned by someone that's been diagnosed as positive. So, and I think you also have to have that proximity for some period of time. And I don't know how many minutes that is. Walking past someone in a grocery store is not going to do it. So the app was designed by Apple and Google. So there are privacy controls in that ostensibly nothing is known about the user. Codes are used that can't be mapped back to an individual. On the surface of it, it sounds like it's fine to use. Now, that said, data must be stored somewhere and made available to the state. So you need to trust that the privacy controls in the app are solid and that the state is going to protect the information. So again, I'm just going to stay away from people.
So, the flip side of this, of course, is, does the benefit outweigh the risks, right? The risk is your data could be taken, your data could be misused. That's always a risk when you're giving your data away. The flip side is you might know when somebody near you, has reported or.
So let me refine that. Well, this is true if and only if there is ubiquitous use of the app, right? So you are correct if everybody is using this thing and you are coming into interaction with people and it would provide value. If you are coming into interaction with people and 10% of them are using this app, it's not, you're not getting a lot of bang for that buck.
Well, yeah, as you can tell, Mike and I disagree about this, but that's fine. We can disagree and still be civil. Are you saying it's a bad or dangerous app?
Not at all. No. My again personal policy is to avoid countermanding the governor. It's just not a good thing to do.
Probably a good policy for you. All right, let's talk about cyber events. What's important right now? Like anything breaking, anything people haven't seen that they need to pay attention to?
Lots of things that are important that people need to pay attention to. The one that was in recent blast, I don't know if it's this morning, maybe yesterday, if you're an Oracle customer, you really need to make sure you were patched for a vulnerability that was just released in October. Patching Oracle is widely known to be a real IQ test because of the number of products used that are integrated and generally unique to a customer. So it stands to reason that there are stragglers. But the vulnerability in question lets an actor execute malicious code over the internet with no skills and no authentication required. Okay, so that's a bad one. Now, to compound the badness, working exploit code is in the wild, and this is under active attack. What did I read? That the exploit code came out 8 days or something like a week after the vulnerability was announced, this is generally what happens. You know, when they make something public, the reason they make it public is now they have a patch. And so the threat actors are going to get to work right away figuring out what the patch fixes, and then they're going to develop an exploit to break that open. And that in this case took about a week. So get those Oracle patches deployed, because this one's, like I say, is under active attack. But there's another good one, and this one was a jaw dropper. I don't know if you read this. There was an iPhone bug that was patched, and now that the details are known, this one was pretty breathtaking. In fact, I think that was exactly the word used in the title of the article. And it's a memory corruption bug in the iOS kernel that gives an attacker remote access to the entire device over Wi-Fi with no user interaction required all, and it was wormable, which means it could go from device to device to device, just over wireless communications. That's the kind of vulnerability that I don't think anyone would want disclosed publicly before there was a patch. I think it's real easy to agree on that.
Well, that's not good at all.
No.
Hey, by the way, isn't there a Supreme Court case about that? CFAA, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act?
Yeah. Yes. My, how you've come along with this stuff. So, yes. That is a law that was written when people were using 56K modems to attach to the internet. And you could steal credit cards by mounting NFS drives over the internet. I've heard. Anyway, this is about exceeding authorized access. And right now there's a case before the court that has to do with a police officer taking $6,000 or some like that to look up someone's license plate. And it turns out the person that was asking the police officer to do that was the FBI. And so set aside all the problems that come with that. The bigger ramp, so clearly that was exceeded access, but the bigger ramification there is whether the law is going to be used to chill things like vulnerability research, right? Lots of companies don't want anybody finding things wrong with their products. In fact, that one I just talked about with Apple, that was discovered by Google. Okay, so clearly, they don't want people, saying, hey, we just found this stuff that's really wrong with your product and we're going to tell the world about this. But the problem with that is that disclosure of these problems is done responsibly, and there's a script for doing that. I notify you of a problem with your product and give you time to respond. We've actually done this for cameras that we found backdoors built into. And if you don't respond, the information goes public in a controlled way so that customers of the product can get compensating controls in place until there's a patch. All that could be undone with this. So this is an important one to watch. the whole bug hunting industry that's come up is a fairly controlled thing, and lots of businesses, I think, are okay with doing that in a controlled way if they are supporting it. They don't want some rando on the internet finding things out about them. That's really what this is.
Yeah, we'll have to watch that. When you say 56K modem, boy, why would somebody pay $56,000 for? No, I'm just totally kidding.
That's what they cost.
I know.
My Telebit modem cost $19,200.
My kids don't know what a modem is. So there's another one in the news though, the Communications Decency Act. We've talked about that before. What's the deal now?
Yeah, the CDA. We have talked about that. And it's specifically, and this is also, a very old statute. What's in question right now is called Section 230. And that's the provision that provides immunity for online service providers and indemnifies them for information publicly posted by their customers, right? So, this is about free speech. So the problem is now that some of the social media companies have had it with the conspiracies that people happily lap up, and they're starting to market as such, right? This is disputed, or they don't come out and say this is a conspiracy theory. But so that raises the ire of certain politicians that would like to, continue to groom a lunatic fringe, if I can use that terminology. So if it's marked or removed, the argument is now that the service provider has become the arbiter of free speech and they should lose their immunity. And that's actually a pretty sound argument. So we're going to have to see where this one lands. Regardless, the key problem is going to persist. That's not going to go away. And that problem is the ease with which easily disproved disinformation is eagerly consumed and regurgitated by a gullible public. I mean, that's really the problem there. It's not what the service providers are doing. It's the cognitive impairment of the people.
Well, indeed. Well, we'll just leave that one right there.
Okay.
And we're going to move a little deeper into cybersecurity.
Okay.
Or one of your favorite words, cyberish.
Cyberish.
Who's been getting cybered?
The holiday really didn't have an impact on that. So a lot of the same activities before the holiday, right? It's ransomware and business email compromise and actors that phish you to get your passwords so they can walk into the network and play a long game to gain intelligence and steal your money through rerouting payment information or encrypt you out of business and blah, 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 blah. There's a new one, and this was a subject of a threat briefing I got the other day. The ransom denial of service is ticking up and becoming more frequent, right? So pretty clear what that is. We're just going to knock you off the internet until you pay us. So, and by the way, talking about the long game part of this, right? This is because this is the way that they're working. They get into the network and they got to look for the good stuff, or they have to look for the person who is the person that pays invoices or whatever. And so, because they have to be in for a while and do that looking around, this is your opportunity to have your monitoring and response come in. Because if you expunge those actors when you see the signal on the network after your prevention has failed, you can avoid having, your business crushed or your money stolen. So, the whole thing about watching for aberrational events on your network and traffic you've never seen before, that is becoming more and more and more important as these tactics change from I'm blowing a shotgun blast across the internet to I'm targeting that one individual because I know that individual pays invoices and responds to that individual's emails. So now I'm going to get in and I'm going to do that, right? So, the change in tactics has made monitoring even more important. And so let me just say to that end, a good piece of news is the final Health and Human Services rules that provide safe harbor for cybersecurity technology donations. Okay, if you're not in the healthcare space, that might not mean a lot to you, but this is a big deal. The translation of that is that larger healthcare providers can now provide security assistance to the smaller ones without running afoul of something called the Stark Act. And so my colleague Drex DeFord knows much more about this than I. But one key quote got my attention, and I'll paraphrase here. The exception doesn't require the recipients of the benefit to reimburse or pay for that or contribute to the cost of that. So it can be provided at no cost, or it can be a shared. The cost can be shared. So that sets up an interesting model that I think will evolve in the healthcare space. Think about running a SOC operation for a number of regional hospitals. We need that. So this is actually a really good thing that happened recently.
Yeah, and certainly we want to let people know that we can help with that. But you were talking back there about making sure you don't click on bad links and like. I do want to tell people to look in the chat right now. We're doing 2 events. One we started doing every Friday, which is security awareness training. Obviously, we didn't do it last Friday, but it's getting toward the end of the year. If your organization hasn't done security awareness training, or you haven't done it since going remote, it's free. Come join us. Almost 1,000 people have now gone through our free security awareness training. That's number one. Number two is, because of that, Mike Simon, our CTO, he's the smart Mike in the company. I'm just kidding. He said, hey, we should do a tabletop exercise. We should do a virtual tabletop exercise. And we're doing that next week. And you're muted, by the way.
I know.
Okay, good. Anyway, so we're doing that virtual tabletop exercise. Well, we expected, I guess I sound like a broken record when I say this. I thought 10 people, 20 people would sign up. Mike, do you know how many people have signed up for that?
For the tabletop? No.
For the tabletop. What's your guess?
100?
250 people have signed up for it.
Really? Well, I mean, this is another, one of those regulatory things that you got to tick off every year. So in addition to getting some value out of seeing how a tabletop is run, especially with an example, I think it's going to be ransomware, right? That's valuable. But if it serves a compliance, task, and you can mark that off the list, it's even better. So that's not that surprising.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially, I know that folks have just had a rough year. And so getting this stuff done, and we're happy to provide it for free. Come join us for that. Such a weird year, especially in the health sector.
Yeah.
I just read in the blast, more than 1,000 physicians have closed up shop from the stress and abuse they're taking. And more than 100 rural hospitals have closed. Like, this is just awful. So do you have anything happy for us here?
I'm reaching. So I'm going to have to say no. There are a couple that I want to be sure and point out, but this is not going to make anyone happy. There were 2 stories in the last few days that really got my attention. And one is about how a new cyber attack can replace certain segments of a DNA sequence in a database, with researchers working on things, and fool scientists into creating viruses and toxins. And that sounds a little James Bondish, but they proved that this is actually a possibility. The abstraction is this: data integrity for that type of research is pretty important. And if an actor can change data and you can't detect that, all kinds of bad things are possible. Now, what this article did not say is that there is something called 21 CFR Part 11, and when anything gets to the clinical testing phase, where they're actually doing things on real humans, there's a whole lot of controls in place. And so this was a good article, and maybe just a little hyperbolic. But the other one is worse. And the title of the article is Omniviolence is Coming and the World Isn't Ready. And it's about the availability of technology that can be weaponized, right? Including drones, biotechnology, nanotechnology, but gave an extensive example of how small drones can be used to swarm over a city and drop small charges, right? And only a few % of those need to accurately hit their targets. So the premise of the article is that if the construct of the state the government, cannot protect against something like that, the compact between citizens and the state has much less meaning, and anarchy will follow. And it's true. The bar has been lowered so far with commodity technology that the next Unabomber is probably going to achieve some scale.
Well,
so no, that's not happy. No, that's not.
Mike, you are not following directions. I said something happy.
It's a feature, not a bug.
So what does this make you want to do?
Well, it makes me want to yell at the rotary dial members of Congress that are not grasping any of this reality, right? This whole cyber stuff isn't about viruses anymore, and they are just not getting that. I mean, that's, frankly, I want to go be a lobbyist. That's what I want to do.
You'd look great on K Street. Okay, so can you please follow directions for once? Can you please leave us with something happy? It is the holiday season.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna do my best here. So the pandemic has everyone working as a distributed workforce, right? And employers are increasingly concerned with productivity under those circumstances. So, forget the fact that people are trying to manage their own IT, kids that have to attend class online, competition for the bandwidth in the house, and constant news about how you're going to die if you congregate with too many people, right? They want to know that you're being productive. So two developments here. Number one, Amazon is selling the creepwear they use to monitor productivity in fulfillment centers. And customers are lining up for this stuff, okay? Not to be outdone, Microsoft is now marketing software that monitors things like room temperature. And this is really for things like meetings, right? Room temperature, body language, tone of voice, and other indicators that can be used to determine if you're bored or fatigued or, what the value of the meeting was. And these are pretty weird tools coming out in a response to the pandemic and the retooling that we've all had to do and the distributed workforce that nobody can keep an eye on anymore.
Oh, so I say something happy and you start a paragraph with creepwear in it? Thanks, Mike. How is that not depressing?
Oh, well, taking a longer view, it means we're much more likely now to get federal legislation that addresses privacy rather than leaving that up to 50 state statutes, which, let's go recreate the whole data breach reporting mess, and so that this could actually end up being a good thing and a good forcing function for that.
Yay! There's good news. I can see everybody in the comments celebrating, all the folks watching. They're blowing streamers now. Well done, Mike. Well done.
You bet.
I mean, really.
I'm here for you, man.
Oh, so happy. So happy. Such exciting news. I'm going to tell my kids. I'm going to tell my neighbors. We're really well done.
Okay, that's enough.
Oh, shoot. All right. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. But before that, we'll see you at the tabletop and the security awareness training. We promise it's not boring. In the way that Mike is, the way that Mike is not boring here, he won't be boring tomorrow either. All right, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.